I'm at Eagle Rock today. I'm going to try and take on the True Great Roof, which is an aid climb right behind me, put up by Ian Lingley a few years back. I believe he put it up with Cory as well. So this is what it looks like. It goes out the lip, kind of. I'll walk a little closer to it. Follows this seam right here, right out to the lip, and then around. It's pretty short, as you might be able to see. It's just a few feet off the ground, but that actually kind of makes it scary, because it means that every piece, if any piece blows, that's potentially a ground fall. I'd actually feel safer if this was a bigger climb and this roof was 50 feet up, not 15 feet up. So it puts a little bit of pressure on making sure you get your pieces right. Should be fun. Ian was telling me when they put up the first ascent, I guess Cory didn't have any of his aid gear with him, no aiders or anything, so when he cleaned it he just had some makeshift slings, and I guess their solution was he would go up to a piece, unclip the rope from it, and then basically just whip onto the next piece and clean the unclipped one behind him. So it's just a series of whipping onto every subsequent piece in the roof. I'm hoping that I don't do it that way. I'm going to try and do it a little better, but it's kind of an interesting first ascent story. A little chilly out today. You can see there's some ice and snow around, but it's a beautiful day. I think what I'm going to try and do is set up a time lapse of me out the roof, and if it's really scary, then I'm probably only going to do it once, and then there will only be one time lapse in this video. Otherwise, I might take a second lap up it, just to take the camera up and do like my traditional style of video up it, just to show some pieces off. So we'll see. If there's only a time lapse, you'll know I was scared, and if there's both, then I wasn't too scared. Here's my starting crack. It's icy on the outside, so it seems good on the inside. The route's actually over to my right. I don't know, there might be a direct start that Ian did, but I'm going to start over here and traverse out the roof that way, because it seems a little safer. I'm going to take you through my ground anchor. I've got 3 bomber pieces in this crack tied onto a quad, which double beanered there. So this is my lead line here going up to the roof. I will tension the first piece that I place after I move off of it with a clove, so that this stays tight, pulling upwards so these pieces don't jostle. And the whole thing is backed up with a wrap around the edge of the rock. So I would be surprised if these 3 pieces came out, but maybe if this boulder were to shift, that could happen. So then that's there as a backup, clipped into one arm of the quad. Here I've cut certain pieces out of the time lapse that weren't interesting or just seemed repetitive. I might throw up the full time lapse on my channel if anybody wants to see it. It's about 17 minutes long. I don't know that you would get anything more out of it than what I've put here, but if you're interested in seeing the full thing, I'll throw that up there. Here I'm setting up the tensioning off the anchor to my first piece. Okay, so I've slowed this part of the clip down just to point something out. This is where I kind of messed up. Um, and it's something I need to get better at. I found bounce testing pieces on a roof really hard to just bounce test your next piece and not be bounce testing your previous piece. If you watch really close, as I'm bounce testing my pin, my previous cam actually pops out on me, which is lucky, I guess, that my next pin didn't need to be bounce tested. It would turn out to be solid enough, but it could have been really bad. Uh, it's not super unexpected. That cam was in a really nasty flared pocket. It's not a great cam, but it would have been nice to be able to bounce test that pin without bounce testing that cam. At the same time, if I'm on a really crappy cam and I bounce test that pin and that pin comes out, I don't know that falling back onto that cam is going to be any better. So maybe I just shouldn't have bounce tested here, and I should have just assumed everything was body weight only. Here, the crack was actually filled with ice, so I had to spend a bit of time smashing it with the hammer to try and dig out the crack so I could put some gear into it. And then I changed my mind on that whole thing and just started trying to throw a sling and lasso a branch up above me. So that was a pretty messed up climb. It's really scary. I'm not leading it again. Once is enough. But I do have to go back out and follow it, which is kind of like leading it again, but at least if a piece goes, I'm swinging out into space instead of back towards the ground. But I'll show you a little bit of what I had to do. This is my first piece. I didn't actually use this. This is just a mental backup. But this pecker was my first piece, and that's really the only piece. So if it blows, you hit this rock and you continue tumbling down. But luckily I could stand up, and I have a pin there, but I actually didn't place that pin until back behind me. I stood up and placed this cam here, which felt really good, and then I placed this as a backup. So that's a really scary first move. Then from there, you've got a cam in a very flaring pod, which was pretty scary. A hammered up pin that goes directly vertical, another hammered up knife blade that goes directly vertical, rinse and repeat once again to the lip, and then at the lip, it's not quite over. There's some tricky moves out around the lip. I actually threw a sling and tried to lasso a tree, which worked out pretty well. And then I switched to free climbing up the top because it turned to like 5.4, so it was easier just to run up the slab to a tree, to an anchor. And then I wrapped back down to following the line I came up. I could have just wrapped down and walked back, but I won't always have that luxury if you're at a multi-pitch anchor and the anchor's off to the side. you can't just wrap straight down in a secondary line. So I wanted to simulate that. So I came back down on the same line, which was tough to come in under the roof on, but good practice. And now I've got to go back out one more time, and hopefully it all goes well. All right, done. All clean. There she is in all her glory. I won't be doing that one again. That's a one and done. It might be a little less scary if you did what I originally planned on doing. If you remember at the beginning of the video, I showed that iced up crack. That would be a much more safe start, but I wanted to do it direct, I guess. But it would still be scary with the pin. If I was ever going to do it again, I wouldn't do the direct start again. But I'm glad I did it the first time. But most likely I'm never getting on that again. That thing was gnarly. And overall, a one climb and never do it again. Did I mention I'm never going to do it again? But really fun. Kudos to Ian for having the vision to nail out that thing. As always, your routes are horrifying. And time for you to put up another one, because I think that's all of them. Oh yeah, and lessons learned. Aiding at a roof is logistically very difficult. The adjustable aiders, I kept getting like stuck on my last piece, and I couldn't release my adjustable aider from my last piece while I was on my current piece. So I kept getting stuck between the two, and it was really inconvenient and kind of finagly. So I think in the future, note to myself, need to find a better, more efficient way of setting up for roof aiding. The adjustable aiders are great on steep, slightly overhanging, but on the full roof it was kind of a pain. Same with cleaning. I had an adjustable daisy on my top Jumar, and I kept kind of getting stuck and just kind of a pain. So for cleaning and leading aid roofs, I need to find a better system than what I use today. And one final note, if you wanted to see some funny pictures of this route, check out the route page on Mountain Project. It's got some pictures of Ian on the first ascent, and it's got some pretty funny pictures of Cory hanging upside down with his feet stuck in a sling between a couple pieces. So if you're curious, take a look at that. They're good pictures.